this week's learning webinar. My name is Chantel, and I'm going to be your host today as we discuss roofs. We're going to design a few different types of roofs, and as we go through and put the roof on the building, we'll talk about all the different settings for the roof so you have a good understanding of how the software works with roofs. So when you're tackling your own roofs, you'll be able to take the knowledge you take from today and apply it to any kind of roof system that you're dealing with. So in today's class, we're going to be putting on a roof on the second floor. We're going to be putting on a roof over the porch area at the front here, and then we're going to be modifying them as well. Following the presentation, I'm going to open up the chat panel where you can type in questions that you might have about roofs, and I'll get to those at the end of our class. So our lesson time is going to be about 30 minutes, and then we leave the last 30 minutes for questions and answers. So if you do have any questions already, make sure you start typing them in now so that I get to your question at the end of the learning portion. So as you can see on my screen, I do have a building drawn already. I'm going to put it back down into 2D view to create the roof itself. Anytime I'm creating a roof, there's a series of steps that I always go through to create every single roof. The first question that I ask myself, does the shape of the roof match the shape of the house? So when we look at our plan view, and right now we're on the second floor, looking at the second floor of our drawing, the shape of the roof is going to match the shape of our house. If it had extended out over the porch roof as well, that's not included with the wall structure on the second floor, or if there was maybe a bump out at the back that we're going to be creating, or there was maybe a jog out the side, then the shape of the roof and the shape of the house wouldn't match. And instead of using our roof by picking points tool, our roof by perimeter tool, we'd use the roof by picking points tool. So that's why I always start, which tool can I use? Both of these tools, roof by perimeter and roof by picking points, are ultimately going to give you the same roof at the very end. It's going to function the same. Doesn't matter how you put it in, either using these tools, but what makes the difference is how you put it in when you use these two. Roof by perimeter is very automatic. It automatically looks at the exterior walls and puts a roof on. Roof by picking points allows you to step away from the shape of the house and put in any kind of shape you want. The shape of our house does match the shape of the roof, so I'm going to use roof by perimeter. The catalog panel to the right is going to update and show you all the various types of roofs that you have available. You can always add to this list. Don't feel that the roofs you find in our default catalog are the only ones that you can insert. If you find that in your local area you predominantly use a 5 and 12 or a 9 and 12 and you don't see those in the list, add them in. You can always right-click here in the catalog and say Add Element, and that'll allow you to describe a new roof style that you can add into your catalog of roofs that are ready to be inserted right away. A question that I'm posed quite frequently for brand new users is, why don't I see a gable roof in the default catalog? Why are they all hips? Well, when we're using our automatic roof tool, which I'll use right now, I'll use it as the 812 hip, and I move my cursor inside the home and left click once, it will automatically create the roof for me. But when it's automatically creating that roof for me, if it automatically created a gable, which way did the ridge go? Does it go front to back or left to right? There's no way of automatically determining that. That has to be a secondary step. So we allow that to be a secondary step by left-clicking on the overhangs and then choosing by clicking on the arrows that appear which sides you want to be a gable later. So that's why you won't find it in the default catalog, because it would be an extra step. So to quickly put on an automatic roof for those that just want a hip, we allow those to go in, and then for those of you that want a gable, that second step happens afterwards by selecting the two sides that you want. When we select the sides that we want for our gables by selecting that overhang, then it's just a matter of right-clicking. Anytime you right-click in the software, it's always giving you up options. And the option that we really want to look at today is the properties of the roof. It's here in the properties of the roof that we're going to spell out what we're doing differently for those two green arrows that we selected. The two red arrows, if I just move this dialog box out of the way for a second, are going to retain the fact that they're 8/12 hip. It's the green arrows and only the green arrows that we're changing at this point. So any differences that I make will only be affected on those two sides. So it's right in here right away that I'm going to come over to this roof shape on the upper left-hand corner and click on that button. And when I click on that little visual of a hip roof, it brings up a dialog box with all different types of roof styles in it. This is where I'll see that I can change it to a gable or a mansard or a Dutch hip. This custom option will allow you to build up different parts of the roof. So think of an old gambrel style roof where you might go from a 2/12 to a 12/12 back up to a 4/12 and you have multiple slopes down one side. The custom option will allow you to build upon the roof and create multiple slopes up one side. You can also have a bullnose or an arched roof or a double slope. The double slope is a great way of creating a shed roof off of the main roof. So if your main roof was an 8/12 and then you died off into a 4/12, that double slope will allow you to do that. It's also great on either side of a gable roof. If you want to create little kickouts, that double slope will allow you to kick it out with the extra double slope there as well. So for our example, on our very first example today, we're just going to set that to gable. And when I set that to gable, you'll notice that all the parameters that were there before when it was a hip disappear. And that's because, and again, if I move my dialog box out of the way here, as soon as I make these to a gable, all it's going to do is extend the ridge to either side. So it doesn't have to worry about pitch. The pitch on this side is going to be determined by that arrow, and on this side it'll be determined by this arrow. So we no longer have to worry about pitch or any of those other settings. The only settings that are going to be valid are what is the overhang value on this end, which we still see in our list. And there's also a new setting in there. If I drag this back up, we can see that we have the option there for display gable. This display gable option deals with the area of the wall underneath the gable end. How do I want to build that gable end wall? Do I want to leave it at none? Don't build a wall up there. Let the walls below automatically extend up and fill in that area. Do I want to set it to a surface? Maybe I'm using a gable end truss and I just have to show the siding or stucco finish on the end of that gable end truss. Or do I want to build a gable end wall? And it'll be a fully framed wall that's up there, so you'll get your piece count of your studs that are there and all the materials that are being used. So in your own construction practices, how are you building that gable end wall? Are you leaving it at none and balloon framing the wall beneath it up? Are you putting a surface on a gable end truss, or are you building a gable end wall? You can set it to either one of those options. And then as soon as I click OK, you can see that the ridge was extended, like I said it was going to, and we have our two gable ends on either side. Okay. So the sides that you are affecting, the first thing I do, just to kind of recap our steps so far to get ourselves here, when I'm creating a roof, first determine, does the shape of the house match the shape of the roof? And from there I know which tool to use, roof by perimeter or roof by picking points. My second step, always, any roof, is to place my gables. So I found my two gables on either side here. My next step would be to look at the roof and determine if there's any other changes that might occur. Is there a plate height difference in any side of the roof? Does it change anywhere? So I'm going to left click on the overhang at the back of the home this time, and you can see that now that arrow is turning green and the other two sides are deselected since I selected on the overhang at the back. Now I want to change information about just this side. I want to change plate height or pitch information back here. So to do that, again, with it being the only one selected and the only one that will be affected by the changes I make, I'm going to right-click again. And when I right-click, it'll bring me up my right-click options, and the one that I want to use again is properties. I want to review the properties of this one side, this green arrow. Brings me back up into the same dialog box with the original settings that we originally had on the other two sides as well before we changed it to gable. And this is where I can say, on the back of the roof, maybe it's only going to be a 6 1/12 slope. Maybe the overhang is going to be greater back there. Maybe it's a 2-foot overhang. As you're making changes, the little visual here to the right is going to update and show you the changes that are going to happen there. So you can see them happening as you're making those changes. I'm going to go over here to Support and Details on this tab. And this is where I can make some changes here as well. So through Support and Details, I can say I want to change the support height of the roof itself. Maybe it's sitting down lower. Maybe the back end of the house dies down. Let's change this to 4 feet so you can see how that's going to be changed as well. So right now the roof is sitting at the very top of the second floor wall, right up at 8 feet. But I told it that the back wall is going to come down to only 4 feet. And by clicking OK, we can see that the ridge line moved dramatically because of the pitch change and the plate height change. And you can see that the overhang at the back also extended out to our 2-foot overhang. So let's take a look at this in 3D. And there we can see in our 3D view that the roof is now supported at the back, down lower at our 4-foot plate height, instead of at the back at the front of the house where it's at an 8-foot plate height. And we can also see the slope change. So first determine how you're going to put on the roof, roof by perimeter, roof by picking points. Find your gables, and then after you're done your gables, that's when you're going to start changing sides of pitch and plate height and modify all the different arrows. Take a look at the roof, what needs to be changed, find the arrow that needs to be changed, and select it and change it. Okay. I'm going to put this back into 2D. I'm going to slip us down now to the ground floor location. So down the lower left, I'm just changing it that I want to work on the ground floor. So now we can see our ground floor plan, and we can lightly ghosted see that roof on the second floor, so we know where it's sitting. On this particular location, we can see a concrete or a brick pad out front of the house and the columns. And we're going to create a roof over this area right here. So when I ask myself that same question again, does the shape of the roof match the shape of the house? This time it absolutely doesn't. We're not looking at the wall lines at all. We're looking at creating a roof off of the house over our covered porch area. So that's when I would use roof by picking points. And now in my catalog panel, I go back over and I tell it I want a 4 1/12 hip roof with shingles. And this is more than just a left click. I'm just going to zoom in on the area, make it nice and big on the screen so you can see this happening as well, much larger. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick points to show where my roof is starting and stopping. Each corner of the roof has to be defined. And it's originally going to put on a 4 1/12 hip, which we're going to later change into a shed style. So I come over to my first column, I left click on it, come over to my next column. At the very end, I don't have to pick at each column. Remember, I'm picking at the corners. So this last column at the end is where I'm going to form a corner. Left click here. Bring myself up to the stud wall where I'm going to support it again. Left click. And bring myself over and line myself up using that snap track tool of my original start point. And left click on it. So now I have my 4 corners of this roof. With that done, I right click and tell it I'm finished. It does what it told me it's going to do. It put on a 4 1/12 hip roof. I don't want a 4 1/12 hip roof. I want it to be a shed roof. So I know with putting on a shed roof, I'm going to change all of the sides where I need to have a gable end. And where we're going to put a gable end is anywhere where there's going to be a gable, anywhere where you wouldn't hang a gutter, or what you might refer to as an eaves trough. Anywhere there wouldn't be an eaves trough is where you would make that end of a roof a gable. So I know I wouldn't want to eaves trough or a gutter up against the house. And since it's going to be a shed roof and sloping right back to the house, and maybe I'll just draw a simple illustration. So if this is our two-story home, what we're going to be forming is a little shed roof out to our columns out here. Okay, so this is our shed roof coming down. So I know on this sides, I wouldn't want them to have a gutter or an eaves trough either, so I'm going to select them. So I've selected all of the sides where I wouldn't hang a gutter or an eaves trough. I'm making those gables. To make them gables, I right-click and look at their properties. Again, back in that roofs dialog box, I'm going to go to the roof shape and tell it with the roof shape, I'm making them gables. I'm also going to change the overhang and a bit of the one at the back, but right now I'll leave them all at a 1-foot overhang. When I click OK, the roof itself, it doesn't look like anything's really there. But if I pop this into a 3D view, we can see the shed roof. So I picked the 4 corners to, first of all, form the roof by picking points. I picked out here, I picked this corner, and this corner, and it originally created the hip style roof. And then by showing it the sides that I want to be a gable, sides where I wouldn't normally hang a gutter or an eaves trough, it automatically raised the roof in those sections so that I have my slope. So a gable beside a gable will automatically shed the roof. Gable beside gable, and I get a shed on the other side as well. Anywhere you wouldn't hang a gutter or an eaves trough, you're going to make into a gable end. Okay, so now we have our simple shed roof over the back, over the front porch. I'm going to go a little bit further with that and customize it a little bit more. So the front overhang that we have here, it's the only one really that's holding pitch and plate height information. Because the other 3 sides are now gables, that means that they're just going to follow the slope and plate height of that one side that has the hip. So this one side is now telling it it's a 412 hip and it's an 8-foot plate height. But what if our client wanted a little bit more detail by the front entrance? So instead of just being a shed, they wanted to break this portion out at the front to form a little gable end there. How do I do that? Because if I change this into a gable, that means all 4 sides will be gable and they'll all just pitch right up. I need this to remain a hip so it knows the plate height and it knows the pitch. So I want it to be hip, gable, hip. And right now we only have 1 arrow, so how can it hold 3 different styles? Well, with this one side selected, again I'm going to right-click to reveal my options. And in my right-click options, there I can see the option to break. I want to break this overhang. And what it's doing is it's just putting a little dot where you've broken it, and it recognizes itself as 2 different portions of the roof. Let me show you. I'm going to choose break, and I'm going to break it right at this column. So it broke it. We can see the little square formed, and now I have 2 arrows. But I want to break it again because I want it to go hip, gable, hip. So I select this arrow because it's the longer section, and I need to break it right here on this column. I right-click again and choose break. Move my cursor over the other column, left-click, break it, the dot appears, and now I have 3 arrows. Each one of those arrows can hold different information. So as an example, I'm going to put my cursor near this blue square at the end of the green arrow. Watch as I get closer and my cursor is going to change. My cursor changes into the move cursor. It's ready to pick up this arrow and move it somewhere else. So I'm holding down my left mouse button, and keeping my left mouse button held down, I'm going to move it out to the face of the concrete. It moves that edge of the roof down, And as it moves it down, it creates these two sides to that roof. So now they can have those two red arrows that have been formed can have pitch and plate height information as well. And this very front arrow, I'm going to right click and look at its properties and make it our gable by clicking on the roof shape button and telling it that it's a gable and clicking OK. That gable that I just formed is getting its pitch and its plate height by those two red arrows that were formed that are feeding into it. So I could change those to be any slope or any plate height that I wanted to. So if I wanted to raise them, I'll just select them, deselect my front gable, right-click, look at their properties, and tell them maybe on these two sides, instead of being a 412, we're going to bump that up to a 1012 and click OK. And see the slope going back? See how that's formed? Right-click, properties. Let's try that at an 812 slope. See the difference? See how you can change and affect it? Just this portion. It's not affecting my overall shed roof over the front porch, just the gable. Because I'm just changing those two arrows and affecting their sides. So I'll say it's a 6 and 12 and bring it down. So when we take a look at that in a 3D view, we can see the roof that we've created and the little gable out front. So again, when you're creating a roof, first step, always, is it roof by perimeter or roof by picking points that I need? Once the roof is on, they're both going to function the same way. And the next step that you'll always do is, where are my gables? Do I have a gable end? Is there an end that's on a shed roof portion where I would not hang a gutter and I wouldn't hang an eaves trough? Maybe it's up against the face of the house, like our back edge is here on our veranda roof. You're going to make those gables as well. Once you have all of your gables formed, then you start looking at the roof like we did on the main roof on the upper story. Is there a plate height change? Is there a pitch change? Just the same as we did at the front in this porch roof, there was a change in style at the front. So we broke the roof to accommodate our hip, gable, hip portion. I'm going to put this back into 2D, and I'm going to go back up to our second floor now, zoom back out, and along the back edge of our house, I'm going to form a dormer roof. When we're doing the dormer roof, there's a couple things that I do before I start the dormer roof tool. When the dormer roof tool starts, it's going to attach my dormer to my cursor, and I left-click to place it where I want it to go. If there is a very specific place where I want that dormer, then I always like to use construction lines to show it exactly where I want it to go. So I go up to Tools and Layout, and I choose Line. With the Line tool, I can pick and point of where I want the dormer to go. If you look at my cursor right now, it looks like a circle with an X in it. That means I've found the absolute center of this wall. You'll notice the Object Snap tool will find endpoints and the midpoint. So right now it's found the midpoint of this wall. So I want it right in the midpoint here, and I'm going to left click. And then as I'm moving this line back and forth here and stretching it out, I want you to look down at the bottom of my screen. See how I have distance? I'm wanting to move at a very specific distance. I want it to come back 3 feet. So there I could type 3 feet and hit enter. And it formed a 3-foot line, and now it's ready to do my next line. I'm going to right click and tell it I'm finished. It's at the end of that drafting line that I want to place my dormer. So to form the dormer, I'm going to go back up to my roof tool, and there we see the option for dormer roof. Dormer roof skylights and accessories, the options you see under the roof command as well, all have to wait until you have a roof formed for you to place them. You can't use either 3 of these tools unless you have a roof in place. Because at the same time it's placing the dormer or putting the skylight in or putting on a roof accessory, it's also going to cut the roof to accommodate for it as well. So it's going to cut the roof for your skylight, for your dormer, or any roof accessory that you put on. So it has to have a roof in place or the tool won't work. So I'm going to use the dormer roof tool, selecting it. The dialog box for dormers appears, and this is where I describe my dormer. How wide is the dormer? You can put any width in there. So if it's going to be a dormer that spans the entire back exterior length of your building, this could be 30 feet, it could be 40 feet. How long is that dormer? Make it that length that you need. So I'll keep it at 5 feet. What is the roof type that you're going to put on? So if I come up to dormer roof, I'll say I want a 6 and 12 hip roof at the back. Underneath that, you'll say, do you want the gable, the front, the edge to be gable that's coming out from the dormer? Is the front going to be a gable? If it is, keep that checked. If it's going to be a shed style gable, then leave that unchecked. You want it to be a hip to begin with. So again, you can change the two sides just like we did with our front porch, for those two sides to be gable and the front to be the hip to hold the pitch and plate head information. I'm going to leave mine as a gable front. Then when it's building that dormer, we know what type of roof. Now we need to know about the walls. So I'm going to tell it that we're going to click on this dormer wall button, and we'll tell it that we've got just some vinyl siding going up there. What is the height of that wall above the roof? I'll leave mine there at 3 feet. So this dialog box allows us to describe the materials of the roof, the slope of the roof, the materials of the walls and the height of the walls, and also give it the entire width of the dormer and if it's a gable front or not. From there, all I have to do is click OK. This box that attaches itself to my cursor is looking for a roof surface. So I could have it in the front or I could have it in the back. And it's looking for me to place it. So when I have that line there, it can snap to that line so I know it's exactly placed where I want it to go. I left click, it creates the dormer, and another dormer is automatically attached to my cursor. So if I wanted to place another one beside it, I could left click there and then move to the other side and left click to place it there as well. But I'm done, so I can right click and choose finish. Then I'll pop it into a 3D view and we can see the dormer coming back out the house at the back. Okay, so one big thing that I want you to remember today from today's class is just think about it in high school math class, order of operations. When you're putting on the roof, remember the order of operations that you're going to follow to get yourself the correct roof. First option and the order of operations is, what type of roof is it? Is it something that I can accomplish with roof by perimeter, or do I need to use roof by picking points? Second order of operation, where are my gables? Place all the gables around the building as you need to. And then from there, tackle pitch and plate heights of all the various sides, all the different arrows. And if you need to accommodate multiple pitches, multiple plate heights along one side, remember that you can always select a side, right-click, and break into sections so you can accomplish multiple pitches and multiple plate heights along one side. After today's class and after our question and answer period, I will be sending you out a booklet as well so that you can read about all the different functions that we covered today. There will be step-by-step guide in there. And also remember, no matter what dialog box that you're in our software, you'll always find, and I'm just going to hit finish here, double click on this roof, that there is a question mark up in the upper right-hand corner of the dialog box. That question mark is your link to the program help. So it will open up the program help and it will help you find out information about the dialog box that you're in and all of the various settings that are in there as well. And also remember that you have a direct link to our technical support team. So if you're a little frustrated and can't remember what a various setting might be, you can always call them and they will step you through and help you out. So let's get to our questions today. Maybe I evoked some questions from the material that I covered. Maybe you've always wondered about putting in a certain type of roof, and we can cover that during today's class. Just type out your questions in the GoToMeeting console that's probably running down the right-hand side of your screen. I'll be able to read those out and answer your questions now. So let's go over there and see our questions. If you wanted the front porch roof to have gutters on the front and both sides, you would only select the side against the house to be a gable, correct? Yes, that's absolutely correct. So if I kind of tilt this down a little bit so we can see the arrows forming here, if I wanted this side and this side to be hip ends with a gutter along that edge, I would have left them at hips. So if I right-click and look at their properties, I can change them back into hips. I'll make those our 412 slope and give them a 1 foot overhang and click OK, and you can see that they're hips. I might put that into a rendered outline view so you can see that a little bit better. Yes, absolutely. If I wanted those to be a hip end, I would have left them hip. The only one that I would have needed to select is the one up against the house. That would have been my only gable end because it would not have received a gutter or an eave trough, and I would need to make that into a gable. How can you make the eave height line up with different roof pitches? It's not this way on your front porch. So if we look at, there's an important setting here. I'm going to zoom in here on my roof and then pan down so we can take a look here. So when we have different plate heights, you can see that they might not line up correctly if they're at a different height. The setting that you need to look at when you're trying to line everything up and coming around it, if I look at the properties, is this E1 right here, fascia distance. So if you have two different sides and the eave is not lining up, they're at two different heights and it looks off, maybe you've changed your pitch, maybe you've changed your plate height and it's thrown one down a little bit lower, come in here and alter your fascia distance. And that's going to be the distance off of the theoretical grade up to that fascia. And that should line up and be the same value all the way around your roof. So you can alter that and change that as you need to. Okay, that is all the questions that are up there so far, but I'm going to hold the question and answer time open for the next few minutes, and if there is a question, then we'll be able to answer it live here. Never ever hesitate to ask a question. It's probably the best part of attending these webinars live so that you can ask a question and see it happening real time. We do tape all of our broadcasts, and that recording will be available within 24 hours. GoToMeeting, we have to change the type of file format it is in, unfortunately, to be able to upload it into YouTube so that you can watch it. But once we've got that reformatted and upstreamed into YouTube, we put it up onto our page, so you'll be able to watch it as well. But here's a great opportunity to ask any kind of question that you might have. Next question. So changing the E value will also change the overhang drop. So when I look at properties, changing that E value, yes. When you change any one of these values, it's going to have an effect on all the other values that you see there. So when I'm looking at E here, and I maybe change this, and we'll see the effects when I do change this, I'll make this a straight 8 foot. When I click in any of the other dialog boxes that affects that, like our horizontal distance might change, this overhang drop here, the only time that is going to change, and you'll see a distance difference there, is when I change slope and overhang, because that's really what's going to change that D value that you have in there. But by changing this fascia distance, that's just moving it up or down, that's not going to affect that height in there at all. So when I click OK, now you'll see the change in that being dropped on those two sides. Let me just zoom over here so you can see those going through, and you can kind of see how it drops off there on the ends because I changed that. And if I edit, undo that, we should be able to bring that back up to the correct height. How can you make the dormer on the rear have a full height second floor wall so bearing height is at the second floor? When we put in the dormer itself, these walls, if I double click on this wall, it's all set up to this top and bottom tab. The top and bottom tab, when it's set to auto extend, that means that this wall itself is going to start itself on the floor of your second floor or whatever location it's on. So ours is going to be on the second floor, and it's going to extend itself all the way up to the roof that's over top of it, our dormer roof. So that's one way of getting to be a full height wall. If the wall itself is set to level and not auto extend, that means it's going to chop itself off underneath the roof itself. So you won't see the wall underneath. So auto extend and level are playing the factor is if the wall extends down or it gets chopped at the roof surface. Okay, our next question. Okay, that was our last question. So again, I will let that sit for a moment. And if there's any further questions, type them out, and I'll be able to answer them. And then following the class, I'll send you out your handout by email, so you'll get the little booklet. And then again, in 24 hours, you'll see the video up on our YouTube channel. Okay. And while we're waiting for questions, just in case someone's typing one out, I'm going to take you up to our website. For those of you that are new to Envisioneer, I see quite a few new names that, from the International Builders Show. If you've never come up to our website before and you come up to www.cadsoft.com, I invite you up to the Client Center. Up here you'll find some really great information, specifically here under the Tutorials option. Here under Tutorials, that's where you're going to find lots of videos and booklets to read on all subjects of the software. So up at the top, if you're wondering about building walls, you can just click on walls, doors, and windows, and it'll bring you to that section. Or there's further lessons on roofs or columns and members. So a really great place to find additional information about your software and how to use the various functions that are there. You'll also find our webinar link. So this is where you registered for today's class, and you'll notice that next week's class is on columns, beams, and lumber. So you can register for it as well, and we will let you into that class as well so you can learn a little bit more. Okay, there's our next question here. Not sure how to describe this. I have a client with a very complicated roof plan. One of the things he wants to create is a dramatic roof with a reverse shed roof with a high point at the exterior of the house. So he wants it to be reversed. So instead of, if we look at our shed roof at the front of our house, he wants it to come down opposite and drain to the house. Is that what he wants? Ouch. I worry about water buildup, or depending on where your local area is, snow buildup. Is that what he's wanting to do, to reverse it to go the other way? I'm hoping not, so that he's not going to have issues unless, I guess, you drain everything into one kind of local area and have a downspout in that area to drag everything away, but still having that ponding back up against the house wouldn't be a good thing either, if you're in a location that has snow. But if that's what he wants and what the client wants, the client gets, I guess. And if that's what you're describing, and I've got it right there, where we had the roof, I'm going to go to the ground floor here, where we had the roof, this being our fascias on the ends here, this would remain our hip portion at the house, and these ends out here would be our gable. So it would be just the opposite. So where you would put the gable is where you wouldn't hang a gutter or an eaves trough. So just kind of remember that and think, okay, if it's opposite, I wouldn't have a gutter or an eaves trough out here. But at the house, where I necessarily wouldn't have one because it's against the house, but you would need some kind of drainage there, you would make that your hip instead. I'm hoping that's what you're trying to create, and that's what he wants. But if it is, just think of the individual sides and think, is it a hip? Is it a gable? And a gable, remember, being anywhere you wouldn't hang a gutter or an eaves trough, and then use that kind of logic to each side to kind of form it. As the existing house, the low point would attach to an existing roof. Okay, so the low point would come down. So I'm going to draw a little roof off to the side here. So what we have is an existing roof on a house, and he wants to create a shed that reverses back. So he's creating something like this. It's this area right in here that I worry about. Because if you're in an area that has high levels of rain or a snow load coming down on that, that's where there's going to be buildup and drainage issues. You could create, obviously, a downspout in there to kind of funnel the water, but it's still the roof surface that you have there is going to really wear down eventually because it's sitting there and before it drains. And if it's a heavy rain and it takes a while to come down that downspout, that's where he's going to have an issue. But with that being said, and you're looking at that roof, so if we looked at it in a plan view, here's our existing roof, here's the new roof that he wants you to build. This would remain your hip end, and that's where you're going to call out the slope. So that could be your 8-12 as an example, because it's starting there and sloping up. This would be a gable, this would be a gable, and this would be a gable. So yes, absolutely you can create it. It's just a matter of should you. There's always that question with, yeah, we can do that, but should we do that? And that's exactly how you would do it. Same kind of logic that we followed with all of those. Okay. Let's see if there are any other questions. It's just an experiment. You wanted to see how it would work on it. Yeah, absolutely. And it's fun to work on experiments like that and say, this is what it's going to look like. And maybe he really likes it. And then you have to do that secondary research of how are we going to make sure that that drains okay. So that could be a fun project to work on. All the science behind that and what you're going to have to do to make that work. So yes, absolutely. That can be done. Just think of the individual sides and the same type of logic we had for each side. That does seem to be all the questions that are up there. So as I end off the webinar, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I hope you learned something from today's webinar and can take it and use it in your future projects. And again, if you ever have any questions, never hesitate to contact our Technical Support Center. We're open Monday to Friday, 8:30 in the morning till 5 o'clock in the evening, Eastern Time. This Monday is a national holiday here in Canada, so our office will be closed on Monday. But you can always visit our forum up on our website on that same link that I showed you today, www.cadsoft.com. Go to the Client Center, hit the forum. The forum's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And when we're closed, many of our other clients may be open. We ship around the world in 4 different languages. So you could converse with someone in Australia or China or France or another person here in North America as well. And they might be able to get you the answer that you need. Thanks a lot for joining our webinar today. I hope you have a great day. Thanks. Bye-bye.